Um, Basically, when it comes to the Capitol riot, basically the Republicans have to pick one thing. They have to pick the truth or Trump, and of course they're not going to pick the truth. They're going to pick Trump, and Trump is one of the people that does not tell the truth at all. He lies more than anything. A U.S. House of Representatives had voted Wednesday on setting up an independent bipartisan commission to investigate the Capitol insurrection that will expose the quandary that now defines the Republican Party. It's the latest twist of a drama stretching from Washington to a sham election audit in Arizona, and in state legislators passing bills making it tougher to vote. Republicans everywhere are making the same choice, and almost all of them are siding with the former squatter Donald Trump, and his false claims of election fraud and his unchecked assault on U.S. democracy. Only a few brave holdouts are standing firm against the tide, and they risk sacrificing their careers to stand with their conscience and American democratic values. This The split will play out again on the House floor as the crucial vote takes place. On one side of the dilemma is the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, a California Republican who on Monday came out against a probe that would be likely to condemn the lies and instigation of the 45th squatter, whose coattails he hopes to ride to the speakership. On the other side of the the Trump divide is Representative Liz Cheney, who is the former House Republican Conference chairwoman. The Wyoming lawmaker contradicted the former squatter's lies and lost her leadership post to Representative Elise Stefanik of New York, whose ambition leaves her with fewer scruples about the truth. Cheney has a company with a handful of Republicans in the House and Senate who voted to impeach and convict Trump after he told supporters to fight like hell and to help the certification of his election defeat. The House bill on setting up the commission is still likely to pass, given that the Democratic majority and it may garner some GOP votes, since it is the product of a painfully reached bipartisan deal in the makeup of the panel and a mandate. But the familiar choice between truth and lies, the Constitution and Trump, will just move to the Senate on the other side of the citadel of U.S. democracy that was defiled by Trump supporters on January 6. McCarthy's move had prompted Senate Minority Leader Moscow Mitch, a Kentucky Republican, to say he'd press pause on whether to support the commission a day after it appeared that there could be sufficient GOP support to enact this bill. His move set up a cliffhanger search for Democrats, by the Democrats basically, for the 10 Republican voters that they need to make the commission a reality. In a sign of the hidden hand seeking to impose his will on his party even while he's out of office, Trump issued a statement on Tuesday evening telling Republicans not to fall into the Democratic trap. Hopefully Moscow Mitch and Kevin McCarthy are listening. And that's what Trump said. And the wild claim is it's not just in Washington that the big question about the big lie is dividing Republicans. State GOP lawmakers are answering it by using Trump's lies about election fraud to pass multiple laws that make it harder to vote, and some of which give the state officials more power to interfere in local precincts. The most flagrant example of Republicans seizing on Trump's authoritarian attempt to undermine American democracy is in Arizona, where GOP state senators have launched a bogus audit of the Maricopa County's results. The recount has been plagued by wild claims that massive amounts of votes were flown in from South Korea, which they weren't, or even a bizarre conspiracy theory that chickens had eaten some of the ballots and were then incinerated, and Trump has added his own blatantly false allegations to the mix. Some Republicans in Arizona are standing with their own consciences and the political freedoms that have underwritten the U.S. way of life for generations. I think there's a lot to fear. If you stand out against this, you will lose your career as a Republican politician," said Stephen Richer, who's a Republican who serves as a Maricopa County recorder. This is what he said to some news organization he spoke to. He said he says, "I have certainly decided that's not as important to me as speaking the truth." Bipartisan congressional or presidential commissions have traditionally been set up to investigate some of the most traumatic and consequential events in American history. Former President Lyndon Johnson had tasked the Warren Commission to investigate the assassination of his predecessor, John Kennedy. The 9/11 Commission was established by Congress to investigate al-Qaeda's attacks in New York and Washington in 2001. Not only do such panels serve a valuable role in basically establishing the facts of an incident, they also elevate investigations above day-to-day partisan politics and can produce reports that contribute to national unity. Such probes are often identify weakness in U.S. defenses that enemies were able to exploit, for instance, in aviation security and poor cooperation between intelligence agencies back in 2001. The commissions also provide a moment of national accounting for history and an agreed upon version of the facts and help to they help to debunk conspiracy theories. One reason Republicans they're also whitewashing Trump's assault on the U.S. democratic system, and it basically itself may oppose such a panel now. McCarthy's decision to oppose the 9/11 style arrangement is the latest signal that he would do what it takes to win power in the House in the midterm elections next year in November. It follows his pilgrimage to mend ties with Trump at Mar-a-Lago after he initially had declared that the former squatter bore some responsibility for the sacking of the Capitol. The top House Republican said in a statement Tuesday that the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who's a Democrat from California, had politicized the commission and that it was superfluous. Superfluous, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, since the justice system was dealing with the perpetrators of the insurrection. He complained it wouldn't examine the full scope of political violence, including the shooting at a congressional baseball practice in 2017. Yet McCarthy's claims were undercut by the fact that the framework for the inquiry was agreed on after weeks of negotiations that were produced a bipartisan deal between the New York Representative John Katko, the top Republican on the Homeland Security Committee, and that committee's chairman, Democratic Representative Bernie Thompson of Mississippi. I recognize that there are differing views on this issue, which is an inherent part of the legislative process and not something I take as personally. This is what Katko had said in a statement on Tuesday. However, as the Republican leader of the Homeland Security Committee, basically, we should have a deep obligation to get the answers that the U.S. Capitol Police and Americans deserve to, and ensure an attack on the heart of our democracy never happens again. But despite Katko's commitment, House Republican leaders began to lobby their members to oppose the commission bill on Tuesday afternoon that was led by Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana. The House Republican whip who was seriously injured in the congressional baseball shooting, the gunman who identified as a supporter of the independent Senator Bernie Sanders in his 2016 campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination, was shot dead in the assault. The incident, however, differed from the January 6 events, since it was in no way incited by Sanders or any Democrat. The measure that the House will consider on Wednesday doesn't mention Trump by name, but it stipulates that the probe will seek the facts and causes relating to the January 6, 2021 domestic terrorist attack upon the United States Capitol complex and relating to the interference with the peaceful transfer of power. Given such a mandate, it is likely Trump will come in for criticism given his documented spreading of lies about his election defeat, his refusal to guarantee a peaceful transfer of power, and his fiery rhetoric at a Klan rally immediately before the Capitol invasion. Since McCarthy has put Trump supporters, or Trump sycophants is what they should be known as, at the center of his midterm election campaign, his political choice in the commission is hardly surprising. The House Minority Leader may also have personal exposure in a probe likely to examine his own role on January 6 when he had a heated phone conversation with Trump as the riot was unfolding. Testimony would force McCarthy to confront a familiar choice between telling the truth under oath this time and a version of events preferable to the Republican Party's de facto leader, Trump himself. McCarthy did not answer on Tuesday when asked by a reporter whether he would testify before a commission into the January 6 attack. Several Senate Republicans have said that they would vote for the bill, but it is far from clear that there will be enough votes for a passage. Utah Senator Mitt Romney, one of the Republican senators who voted to convict Trump in his second impeachment trial after he had left office, said that such a commission with a limited mandate makes sense. I think the area of inquiry that is most critical relates to the attack on the Capitol, and Romney said when asked about McCarthy's push. Moscow Mitch, who harshly criticized Trump's behavior on January 6 but did not vote to convict him, said on Tuesday that it did not close off the possibility that his caucus could support the panel. I think I'm safe in characterizing our conference as willing to listen to the arguments about whether such a commission is needed, he said, but the Kentuckian also questioned whether staffing for the investigation was bipartisan and said it shouldn't interfere with criminal probes. Democrats are already seeking to increase the price that the Republicans might pay with the public for derailing the commission. Pelosi already accused House Republican holdouts of cowardice, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who's a New York Democrat, twisted the knife on Tuesday. Republicans can let their constituents know they are on the side of truth, or did they want to cover up the lies and insurrection for Donald Trump? And that's it there.